Hey, pickleballers, and welcome to another episode of the PickleBros podcast. Thanks for all your likes, comments, subscribes, and big shout out to Carbon Pickleball for being a friend of the show. Use code PickleBro at checkout to get 10% off. Have a lot of interesting stuff we want to cover today, so we're going to get right into our DUPR check. I had a nice little bump due to some fun games we facilitated on Monday, which Tim will get into in a moment. But Jesse, I'm thinking it's sitting at a legit 4-5 now.
You are. Congratulations. You went from 4-4-5 to 4-5-4. Very nice.
Wow.
I went from 4-5-3 to 4-5-1. So I'm the big loser this week, down at the bottom of the Pickle Bros.
I went 4-2 in those fun games and ended up at 4.62. So wow. I'm pretty happy about that.
That's awesome. All right, I ticked up 200ths of a point to 4.73. Excellent. And let's talk a little bit about the format that we played. So 8 of us showed up.
Real quick, who went 4-2? I know Stolp did, I did,
Louis did, and Louis did.
Jesse, you
3-3.
3-3. Okay.
But the format was interesting. So it was 8 of us, and typically with 8 people, you do something like King of the Court. But I proposed that we do something a little bit different so we could stay with our partners for a little bit longer. And so we drew cards, and we all drew our court assignments, and then whoever was on your side of the court was going to be your partner for 2 games, and then just you played a couple of games to 11, and winners played winners and losers played losers, and then you redrew, and we did that for 3 rounds. So I played twice with Jared, and we lost both of those, and then I played twice with Stolp, and he brought me back. We won both of those, and then I played with Louis, and we won both of those. So I finished on a win streak, and I know that I think all the Pickle Bros acquitted themselves pretty well over the course of the day. So it was definitely fun, and we all kind of ticked up, except for Jesse, but he's still pretty solid there at 4-5-1. So I don't think he's too disappointed.
Stoll, what was your take on how we set everything up? We drew cards for your first partner, then winners and losers split, and then we redid it.
Yeah. So going into it, we talked about it. I didn't think about it one time. And that's kind of the way I like to roll, is I don't like to pre-plan too much within reason with our group, and just let the cards lay out as they may. And I really, really enjoyed it. Our group of 8 that we have, everyone's solid. Everyone can beat everyone at any time. And really it came down to just who to, like, how to approach each game, how to approach people's weaknesses. And I think the best win of the day was Tim and I against Louis, who was a 5.1, and Jesse. And Tim and I picked them apart pretty good. I think we ended up taking you down 11-2. And Tim and I had some good strategy going into it, and we stuck to a game plan. And so I really, really enjoyed it, but I didn't think about that format too much until game time.
Yeah, I do want to challenge you right there, though, on best match, because I was with Monty, who is certainly not the least athletic guy in the group, probably the most, but the least experienced guy. And we took down Louis and Spradlin. So that might be best game of the matchup. We're real proud of eking out that win. It was 13-11, I believe, so really close to the wire. But guys, today's discussion is going to be all things Ernie. And we've got a lot to say about this. I think it's going to be a really fun topic. But we are adding in, hopefully, a new weekly segment to our show. Stolp, I'm going to pass on over to you to talk about it.
Oh, yes. This is what we're starting with. Yes. Okay, everybody. This is called What's Your Beef? And it's going to be targeted on everything that just ticks you off about things in pickleball and what is your beef. This is going to be an interactive segment moving forward. So please email us your beefs, things that just grind your gears. Remember our email address is picklebros002@gmail.com. This is a great Twitter engagement as well. I think we are at picklebros002 on Twitter. Same thing. email, comment, and tell us your beefs, and the best ones will get read on air, because this segment comes from one of the podcasts I listen to, the Jim Rome Show. He's my favorite sports radio talk show host. He has a sponsor, Trapper's Beef Jerky. Hey, we're not sponsored yet, so maybe this could be a new sponsor for us in a What's Your Beef segment. However, people just email, call the show about things that just anything that ticks them off. So I was like, why don't we do that for our show, but make it just centered around pickleball, because there's a lot of things that grind my gears.
Stolp, what's your beef? What grinds your gears?
Thank you, Ian. I can't wait to talk about this. My beef, first and foremost, are when people say, I'm sorry, when the ball hits the net cord and goes over and wins the point. It's like, what are you sorry about, bro? You just won the point. You should be going up there and like, that's right, I meant to do that. That's how I drill that. Suck it. That's what I would rather you say. But instead we have this polite culture that comes over from tennis. So all you tennis players out there, whatever etiquette that you have over there, forget it. Don't bring it over to pickleball, because when you come over and say you're sorry for winning a point, you might as well just walk up to that net and give me double middle fingers to my face. That's what I feel like is happening. So my beef is when people so passive aggressively, I'm so sorry for hitting this amazing shot that made me look good, and then they walk off like with a little super bottle water. They go back to the back corner and they're just like, sorry. It's like, dude, save it. All right, I don't want to hear it. That ticks me off, and that's my beef.
Oh my gosh, that's beautiful. I will not be able to match that wonderful energy. But my beef is when there is no paddle up system or no set rules to facilitate next on court. Our big 16 court play area here in town is getting resurfaced. So of course that takes the hundreds of people who play there and, divides them up around the other courts. So I went to Banning Lewis to play with some young teenagers who were just getting into pickleball. They kind of asked me to show them some things. I used to coach them soccer. And we got there, and all 8 courts were filled up. And then there were probably 20 people just sitting around. And I watched for 10 minutes to see if there was any, way that people were going on courts and how they were moving around. And it was a pure zoo. There was no paddle up system. There was no sense of order that I could discern. And we just left and went to another court, wasted 25 minutes of our time between driving and waiting around, which isn't the worst case in the world. But yeah, and with so many new people getting into pickleball, I'm willing to take this, like this is growing pains, right? I mean, it was a lot of high schoolers who are on summer break, and I love to see the youth getting into pickleball. Even at 31, I'm no longer the youth anymore. So in some, right. So in some sense, I'm veiling the beef with a positive note, but it was so irritating. You can't get on a court. It's Mad Max.
There needs to be, I know there's a universal paddle up system, and it's like, when your paddles are there, you're going to be the next in line. But I feel like with everybody coming into the sport of pickleball, it's just unknown, and you kind of have to learn that the hard way. And when you're there and there's 16 people deep and they're waiting and people are learning the hard way, that is so frustrating.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm being dead serious about this. I'm going to go buy a rain gutter from Home Depot, get some bungee cords, and I'm just going to put the thing up at Banning Lewis.
Yeah.
And everybody's going to know what it is once just someone's got to do it. So I'm going to be the guy.
Nice.
It's a good beef.
Tim, what's your beef, brother?
All right. Well, Stolp hates tennis. I hate tennis. We all hate tennis, but I
Did I say that? I hate one piece of the etiquette that tennis brought.
You hate tennis. That's okay. It's fine. You hate tennis. We all hate tennis. But the fact is, as much as I try to shed a lot of those habits that I brought over from tennis, it still is where I get a lot of my sensibilities. And one of the things I brought over is there's a respect in tennis for hitting the ball cleanly, like being a striker of the ball, right? And I try to do that in pickleball. So what drives me crazy, if you saw it in tennis, you mocked that person. It's not the same way in pickleball, but I still judge the people that do this. And it's the people that throw up absolute garbage on purpose. And Ian, you're guilty of this, bro. You'll just throw up like a lobby like super, like the shot's got a ton of spin on it, and it's ridiculous. It's absurd. And I'm doing, what did my sister call it? An eye roll, the full body eye roll all the way up to hitting the ball, and then I missed the ball. So it's just, and then I don't take any accountability for that. I'm just still judging all the way through. I'm like, why would you hit this crap? Like, you're a good striker of the ball. Just play like you're supposed to play. Stop trying to get in my head with this weird stuff. But you know what? At the end of the day, it works. I just don't have any respect for it. It drives me crazy.
Oh, I love it so much. I love it so much. Jesse, what's your beef?
Well, I've got a big juicy slab of beef,
Yes,
but
you
I'm
do.
serving it with a slice of humble pie. So we have some breaking news here at the Pickle Bros podcast. Yesterday, we received an email from Don Siegel. He's the director of the Rocky Mountain Championships, which is one of the biggest, most prestigious tournaments in Colorado. And I had reached out to him a few weeks ago when we first discovered that some tournaments were not reporting results to DUPR. And I asked him at that time, hey, are you going to be reporting your results to DUPR? And he said yes. And so I thought this reflected poorly on all those other tournaments that were not reporting to DUPR. Well, he wrote me yesterday and he said that his position may have changed. So I'll quote you from the email. He said, I was confident the PickleBallbrackets platform and DUPR were and are compatible. Unfortunately, politics continue to play a significant role in what can and cannot currently be accomplished in the pickleball world. This is one of the top tournaments in Colorado. He's saying he may not be able to report his results to DUPR. This is a problem. Okay, and first of all, what does he mean when he refers to politics getting in the way? I am speculating, I don't know for a fact, but I'm speculating that there's a conflict between the billionaire owner of PickleBallbrackets, that's Tom Dundon, and the billionaire owner of DUPR, that's
Battle of the
Steve.
Billionaires.
Right? So, so they're bickering, I think. Okay, again, speculation. But meanwhile, Pickle Bros like us are forking over $100 to play in these tournaments or more, and the results are not being reported to DUPR, which is very frustrating. And I keep hearing like on these Facebook forums, oh well, don't worry, the problem's going to be fixed. It's going to, any day now. And Stolp and I did this tournament about 10 days ago, and the tournament director said, we think the results will be scraped by DUPR, and this is going to happen in the next 1 to 2 weeks. Well, it hasn't happened, and what Don Siegel is saying is it's not going to happen. Tim and I played a DUPR league match last week against a guy who is a solid 4-5. He played at the same tournament that Stolp and I played in. He won three matches at 5-0. He's a solid 4-5. Well, guess what his DUPR rating is? 3.62. Okay. Now, there's some kind of issues with the data in his case, but part of the problem is that those WPT results were not reported to DUPR.
He's playing matches and they're not getting in.
Correct. And you might say, oh, well, that's just one guy. Well, no, because it affects everybody who plays him. I mean, if we lost to him, our DUPR scores would be decimated, right? So it's like it starts as a small infection, but then it metastasizes. So I think like this is a real problem. It's a problem for players because we want our tournament results to be reported to DUPR. It's a problem for the tournaments because people aren't going to do tournaments. You're not going to pay $100 if their results aren't going to DUPR. And lastly, it's a problem for DUPR itself because it's becoming more and more disconnected from reality when major tournaments, and I mean almost all the major tournaments in Colorado, are not reporting results to DUPR. So that's my beef. But now for the slice of humble pie.
Mm-hmm.
So a few weeks ago, I really criticized National Pickleball because they said they were not going to be reporting to DUPR. And we actually had a whole host of complaints about National Pickleball.
I was on that bandwagon.
Right. And we stand by many of our criticisms of the way they ran their tournament here in Colorado Springs. But on this issue, the DUPR issue, it was wrong to single them out because almost all the tournaments are not reporting to DUPR, and they just have the same issues as everyone else. The problem's bigger than any one tournament. So I am publicly apologizing to National Pickleball. I am wearing my National Pickleball shirt today.
One of your
Sign of-
5 shirts in your wardrobe.
Yes, it's a sign
There's
of
8.
contrition.
Oh, hey.
Awesome. No,
We try to be fair here at Pickle Bros.
and I appreciate you doing that, and it's completely justified. I will also say extend that apology on myself. National Pickleball, there was a lot to be upset about. The DUPR reporting was not one of those things, and I hope that gets resolved, because it's hurting pickleball players everywhere. I think most people, not all people, most people are familiar with DUPR, and I think when it's working, or if games would even go in, it can give some honesty and some truth into your DUPR instead of having misleading results.
Right, and,
Well-
and keep in mind that, sorry, Tim, just this one quick
Yeah,
point,
go ahead.
that this wasn't a problem a year ago, because pickleball tournaments, the old platform, worked seamlessly with DUPR. And then they did this big transition to a new website, and it no longer fulfills that basic function. So it's frustrating, because they went from something that basically worked to something that doesn't.
Right. I just want to add on to what Jesse was saying about that match that we played. So we won that match. It was a super tight match, really competitive match. And we're not even reporting the scores. We're just holding on to the scores until they can figure that out with DUPR. Because this guy that we played, and his partner is really good too. He actually plays collegiate pickleball, which me and Jesse were super jealous about. But
Right.
but Craig is a very good player. Like Jesse said, he played in the 5-0 bracket and did pretty well in that bracket. I mean, if you play against him, you see, this guy's a 4 or 5 plus player. He's very good. But it would do us no good to report that score, because, I mean, what would we get out of it? Like a 0.01 kick, or
Not even.
no
spread's
kick at
too
all?
great. The spread's
No
too
kick
great.
at all? Yeah. So it's just, these are the kind of problems that we're going to keep facing until this stuff gets ironed out. It's super frustrating.
Yeah,
Yep.
and it puts tournament directors in a tough spot, because I'll just use the WPT example, where at the beginning of the day, the tournament director said, within 2 weeks, they are going to be, I said scrubbed. What's the right word? Scraped.
Scraped.
Sorry. Okay. They're going to go in and scrape all the results. And in 2 weeks, you should show that. And if you don't see it in 2 weeks, email yada yada at, duperhelp.com or whatever it was. So it's misleading to the players, and it's not the tournament director's fault. The tournament director is running a good tournament in our case here, and so he's informing the players of something that he thinks he knows at that time. Now, I can tell you for a fact, the gold medal winners, I overheard them talking to the tournament director right after they got their medal. They said, "So when could we expect to see these in DUPR?" And he kind of put on his repeat message of, "You should see them in 2 weeks. Kind of, this is what we've been told." And obviously that was misleading based off of Jesse's email. Not their fault, but who suffers? Again, I just want to reiterate this: the players. The players suffer from this, because we could have addressed this as players. If the tournament director had the right information, we could say, "Hey, you could talk at the beginning of each match if you want to log these into DUPR, or make it the expectation that, hey, we're not officially partnered with DUPR or whatever, but you can talk amongst your group of 4, and if you want to log them into DUPR, you can do so." Like, we can give us some of the put the power in our hands, and we can solve the problems, but they have to take a position one way or another, and it just ends up hurting us. And so I felt like we were misled, but it wasn't the tournament director's fault.
Yeah.
Exactly. We ended up not doing that specifically because the tournament director had indicated that the results would go to DUPR if we just waited 1 or 2 weeks. And it seemed like overkill to discuss this with players and say, well, we don't really trust what the tournament director is saying. I mean, it just got so complicated that we decided to just keep quiet.
And I was going to say, one of the value propositions of DUPR is that you can put in your rec game matches. And I understand that they weight certain matches based on kind of whether rec or tournament. But even so, getting anything in is better than getting nothing in. So that will continue to unfold. I believe most of our viewers care about DUPR in similar fashion as we do. But for those of you who don't, and kind of tell us you guys care about DUPR too much, it's like,
That's everybody's beef, right? It's
Yeah.
to close out our "What's Your Beef" segment. We know that DUPR is kind of a constant point of beef for everybody. There's huge pros, but we've kind of identified and picked out some pain points. But that was our first ever "What's Your Beef" segment. That felt pretty good to me. I hope we keep it rolling.
We will. And by
Endless material there, but by the way.
Endless.
Oh, we can complain for days, I'm sure. But in terms of keeping it rolling, we're going to go into and talk about the Ernie. And for those of you who might be new to pickleball, I'm going to let you know what that is real quick. It's a term used to reference when a player leaps across the kitchen at an angle to get closer to the net, to get closer to the ball as it's crossing the plane of the net, so that you can hit the ball sooner, hit the ball higher, catch your opponent off guard, perhaps create some different angles that are more unusual, less traditional, unexpected. So as we're talking about Ernie's today, and we do have video clips to show, it's jumping over the kitchen. Now make sure you don't touch that kitchen line when you leap over. In our film review, that is not an uncommon grievance. We sometimes have illegal Ernies, but that's the Ernie. Stolp, can you talk about why you think an Ernie is a requirement in a player's game?
Absolutely. So for everyone to know, 3 of the Pickle Bros on this podcast, Ernie, 1 does not. And so I'm gonna actually we'll talk to that one here later about why he does not choose to Ernie, because he's so dang good, and just imagine him with an Ernie. But, not the point. Why everyone should have an Ernie in their arsenal. I think the Ernie is so effective, not only for an executed shot when you jump over and it's so satisfying, you get to finish a point in athletic fashion and jump over the kitchen corner and slam it into your opponent's feet most of the time if it works out. I think the important reason why to include it in your arsenal is the non-ball or off-ball movement that it puts into your opponent's mind. So if I'm over there kind of fake jumping in the right circumstance to jump over to the kitchen or over the kitchen corner, it puts it into my opponent's mind and forces shots that maybe they wouldn't do traditionally to hit it to my partner. And so it's the only shot in pickleball that I'm aware of that can really force the decision of your opponents, whether you do it successfully or not. You put an Ernie in your opponent's mind, they're thinking differently about that game. They're thinking differently about where to place the ball. They may not be doing forward dinks to you because of this. So therefore you can put a good dinker on your right or left side.
You limit their attack where they play that ball.
Totally limit what they can do. You take away a piece of the court. What other shot can you take away a piece of the court and forcefully make your opponent choose something that you want them to do? And Ernie can do that. That's why you need it.
That's so good, dude. Jesse, Tim, I mean, he may have just covered it completely. Is there anything we want to add on to that?
I mean, I'm usually on the receiving end of these Ernies from these guys, and I can just vouch 100%. It is, for me, because I like to dig straight ahead. It's something I enjoy doing. It's very natural to me, and it really takes that away from me. It forces me to go to the middle. It forces me to go cross court. So even you don't even have to do anything. Just the mere threat of the Ernie is incredibly disruptive to my game.
Yeah, Jesse, can you now people know what it is. They know why they should have it. Now let's get into the nitty gritty of setting it up. How do you execute it? What are the things you do on court to facilitate an Ernie opportunity?
So just a few preliminaries before I get into that. First of all, the spelling of Ernie. Do you guys know? Stolp, do you know how to spell Ernie?
Yeah, it's like Bert and Ernie from Sesame Street, right? Just
kidding. How do you spell his name?
How do you spell it?
No. Okay. Oh, wow. Here we go. Can you use it in a sentence, please? Can you give me the origin? It's ERNE. Ernie.
Oh, he got it. Okay. Good job. Yes. Very good. So yeah, that's how you spell it. And Eoin described it as leaping over the kitchen. You're actually not required to leap over the kitchen. That's how many people do it. But you can actually walk through the kitchen, or you can go around the kitchen, as long as you reestablish on the side of the court. So there are different ways of doing it for those of us who are a little bit less athletic.
We call them athletic Ernies and just, boring, lame Ernies.
So the setup would be, for me, where I'll set it up is if I see somebody keeps going to my backhand and I'm on the left and they really like that shot, and then I'll just feed them one to their forehand kind of up the line. And I know that they're going to reach back and their head goes down and they're going to put it in that same spot. And then I'll anticipate it and run up and have my forehand there at the net to take that ball with an Erne.
Awesome. Stolp, I know that, and Jesse, could you pull up my Erne 9 clip, because it specifically shows me setting up an Erne. But Stolp, while he's doing that, you also mentioned there's cues that you look for.
Absolutely. Here's a reason why you shouldn't wear a baseball cap facing forward when you play pickleball, because guys like me are looking for cues that baseball cap tells me. And what I mean is, so in this case, Tim, I know we're going to talk about you setting this up, but Tim is on the right side and I'll push it down the line. Like Jesse was saying, if I see Tim and he's wearing a baseball cap and his cap is down looking at his feet, I know his eyes are looking at his feet, and his paddle is flat, that ball has one place to go, and that's coming back to me, and that's when I'm going to look to Erne. So what I cue off of is people's hats. When they wear hats, I am going to target you for an Erne, because this bill of the hat telegraphs where your eyes are tracking to, and if they're tracking down at your feet, and if you have a flat paddle face, that ball's coming back to me. Look out, I'm coming to Erne.
Yeah, so one reason I picked out this clip when we came to setting it up is because there's several things you want to pay attention. Watch where Jesse's looking. Watch his eyes. And also, I'm really pushing the ball to the corner, to his forehand, so that he either has to straight ahead dink on with me, which Jesse's quite good at, but I've done it enough with him that I'm confident enough to stay in that battle, or he can go ahead and cross-court dink it over to Tim, which in this particular case, Jesse and I were seeing most of the balls. We're playing the PickleBros, PickleBros matchup. And funny enough, I'm on the left side, that more alpha position, but still we're kind of staying away from the alphas here. So Jesse, why don't we go ahead and watch it real quick? Now, I hit it pretty light because you hit a really low dink, and I wasn't able to quite swing at it the way I wanted to. Excuse me. Got a little frog in my throat there. But just jamming it in the corner, jamming it there until I know that you're going to lift it up. And I still got it paddle on it in a certain fashion. By the way, I didn't hit it very hard. I sort of hit it at a weird angle really soon. So you weren't your natural cadence, right? We hit and we reset, and we hit and we reset. You had fully reset by simple means of me getting to the ball sooner than normal, even if I didn't get a fully clean hit on it. So I know listeners, probably on Spotify or any of the podcasting platforms didn't get to see that. But that was a clip of me just jamming it. I was on the left side, Jesse was on the right side, and we were playing straight on dinks there. Stolp, what you got?
So by the way, Eoin, I would say, is the most effective Ernier in this group. And holy smokes, is it just deadly. It comes back. That one was a soft one, but you have ones that just, I swear, burn the tips of my shoelaces because they're so fast. So he is the master in that, and Jesse is the master from understanding how and what to look for. Jesse taught me that, so those two are go-to guys. But you know what? Tim's been a little quiet in this conversation. You know why? Because the guy does not Erne, but you'll notice in his DUPR rating, he is the highest, and I'm going to go out and say he is the most successful in our group of Pickle Bros with wins and losses. Tim, why do you not Erne or care to even learn? Talk to me about anti-Erne.
Why don't you learn, Tim?
Yeah.
Well, I'm here to learn. I'm here to listen to you guys talk about it because you guys are the experts, and I cannot believe how big a part of your games Ernies are. I just can't wrap my head around that because it's not something I ever consider doing. The only time that I might do it is if my partner and I are at the net and we are strongly on offense and we get a weak return, and if I let that ball, if I let it come down and bounce, then I'm dealing with a dink. So then I'll just take the angle on that and try to Ernie that. But that's not really a traditional Ernie. It's not how you guys are talking about how you set up your Ernies. But it's the closest I've got to an Ernie. But I just don't understand the footwork. I get a little freaked out about where my feet are. I don't want to have to look down at where my feet are. I just feel really comfortable just playing straight up the way that I've always played. But I'll tell you what, I love it when my partner Ernies. I love when I partner with any one of you three because you guys are always looking to do it. And for me, there are no negatives to that. There are no downsides because either you guys are successful with your Ernies or you miss, but I've got the whole court to cover. And I love playing singles. I love looking at what's going on and surveying the court. I love being responsible, and I love my touches. So really, and I know it wreaks havoc on the opponent and it limits their options and what they are able to do because, like Stolp was saying earlier, it forces them into a certain situation where they have to hit it to a certain place. And I'm aware of that as the partner. I know where the ball is likely to go as a result of that Ernie threat. And that just plays right into our team's advantage. Yeah, Tim, so I love that aspect of it.
Yeah, because you play with guys who Ernie a lot, can you maybe, give the cliff notes on what should the off Ernie partner be doing? What should they be looking? How do you position yourself? Because you've got some of the best footwork in our group. And I know that you say, hey, the Ernie footwork intimidates me. But when it comes to the court footwork, you got no problems there. So how do you see the off Ernie partner positioning themselves? What are you covering? What are you looking at?
Well, first of all, I never really know when my partner is trying to Ernie because like I said, it's not an instinct that I have. So it's not something that I look to do. So I definitely don't look to when my partner might be doing it. It's just, they're freelancing and I'm just covering. But if I see them shifting over, I guess in most of our cases, it'd be they're the guy on the left and I'm on the right. I'm just trying to be in the middle of the court. I might shift back towards the baseline a little bit because if that Ernie is defended, I want enough space. I don't want that ball to land deep. But I'm in the middle and deep in most cases. Hopefully that Ernie works. And if I'm partnering with Stolp or Eoin, it probably will. But I feel really confident about if that Ernie is defended well, then I'll have an answer for it. So really, I love the Ernie. I don't want to have to, like you said, I'm a good mover out there. I really have I take a lot of pride in my footwork, and a lot of that comes from tennis. But the Ernie is something that is completely foreign to me. I've never tried to work on it. I know that the sensei over there tried to get Stolp involved because of his great length and his athleticism. I can maybe speak to one of those things, but I don't have Stolp's length or size. So I'm not nearly as intimidating up there up in the Ernie position. But it's something that, I'm interested in it. I just have never learned the footwork, and I've never really had the need. A part of this reason is, we gave our own opinions on drilling last week and how I'd always rather play than drill. I know when Stolp worked on it one day, it was a non-rated game. It was a non-rated day. We were just out there to play and practice some things, which we almost never do. Usually it's almost always on the line whenever we play. And I'm not willing to do it in those circumstances. I'm not willing to try in those circumstances because I just have so little confidence. But it's something that I'm envious of. I love you guys when you do it because it's so cool. I can't believe, like I said, I can't believe that it's a part of your game and how you look at the game because I cannot relate to that at all. But yeah, it's something that I want to learn how to do. I just haven't put the time in. And in the meantime, like Stolp said, I'm doing really well. Like I keep plugging along. Good DUPR rating, good results in league play, whatever. So it's not something that I feel like there's a hole in my game. Like I kind of feel like a complete player. But if I think about it, it's not complete because I don't have the Ernie, and that is part of the game.
I wouldn't say your game has any holes by no means, but adding new tricks to the bag is a better way to think of it. And we are going to circle back around, show some more clips of Ernie's. But I want to deviate real quick and have Jesse explain the often not mentioned or not known Fernie and Berne. See, so we got Ernie's, Fernie's, and Bernie's. So Jesse, I'm going to hand it over to you here real quick.
Okay, so yeah, the way I think of it is, how do you defend against an Ernie? And I think there are 4 ways. The number one way, the best way by far, is to just prevent the Ernie in the first place by not hitting to that part of the court. But if you're not going to prevent it, one thing you can do is you can lob. So I have...
Go ahead and tee that up, because it sounds like here comes a Dr. Seuss book. Ernie's and Fernie's and Bernie's. Oh my!
So this, be ready for this one.
So this is a successful lob. Whoops. Successful lob defense. So
give me that paddle tap. Let's go.
So the problem with that, getting the lob over the Ernier is actually the easiest part of that, because he's coming in. All his momentum is forward. That person is never going to be able to get that lob. The problem is that you have to hit the lob pretty much up the line, because you've got this non-Ernieing player. Like Tim was saying, he's ready for whatever's going to happen. And Tim very nearly nailed that lob right back at us. So, we were lucky it went into the net in that case. But I find that the lob doesn't really work that well. And you're really trying to keep it away from the non-Ernieing opponent, which means you got to hit it right up the line, which means sometimes you hit it out. So I'm not crazy about the lob.
We should call them Learnies with an L.
So my next video I want to show is what I call a Berne. Okay, this is at a tournament in Arizona last year. I'm using the spin serve. It was still legal at that time.
Missed that thing.
I don't.
Oh, so good.
So you see the guy, he's coming. He's been Ernieing all morning. He Ernied within that point. I knew exactly what he was going to do, and so I just drilled the ball right at him. And that doesn't work really against you guys yet. I'm working on it, because your Ernies are they're just not you don't forecast them as much, okay? But with a kind of beginner Ernier, you can see exactly what's happening, and it's just they're very kind of slow moving targets. So the Berne is a great shot. And then the 4th technique I've used against Erniers is, they're going to set up that shot up the line to your forehand. So they're going to hit the ball right up the alley. So the other thing you can do is you can Ernie them before they Ernie you. You can do a backhand Ernie. I did that in a tournament last fall against the Justins, Justin and Justin.
Oh, I remember them.
And they kept Ernieing
what
and
an
Ernieing.
Strategy. Yeah.
Yeah, they kept Ernieing and Ernieing. And I finally was like, enough. And I started Ernieing them, and they just totally stopped. They totally stopped. Didn't do it again the whole rest of the match.
How you like it now?
Yeah, it was a great feeling.
They actually mentioned that. They're like, no one's ever tried to counter Ernie us, and it totally
did say
threw them
that.
off.
Yeah.
So Jesse, can you just summarize in real bulleted fashion what is a Fernie and what is a Berne, just to kind of
right. So a Fernie is a fake Ernie.
Ernie. Okay.
So this was done to me successfully in a tournament earlier this year in Naples, Florida, where the guy would Ernie, and I saw it coming, and so I lobbed over him, and I won the point. And then the guy was earning, and I saw it coming, so I lobbed over him and got the point. Well, the third time, he moves like he's going to Ernie, and I lob over him because it worked 2 times before. Only this time he didn't Ernie. He stepped back because he knew what I was going to do, and he smashed that ball to smithereens. So that was a fake Ernie.
Fake Ernie.
Fernie.
Okay.
Right?
I actually have a story about that. I was MVP playing Camille Diaz. She used to live here. She's now in California for work, but she's a 4.89. I think there's Bailey, and then like Camille is like just barely a tick below her. But an absolute stud. I was playing MVP with her last month, and I was doing my Ernies, and I'd hit one successfully on her, and she was not pleased about it. And so I go for another one a couple rallies later, and she Bernies me, just absolutely set me up, hit me right in the cheek. And then she was apologetic, but I was like, nope, good on you. Like she totally played me. And so then a couple rallies later, I go again, and I hang out on the outside of the box, just a little long. And so, but I go early, right? So she's cross court dinking with Bailey. And so then I go early anticipating it. I force her into a Bernie. I'm doing a Fernie. Then she pulls a Bernie on me, and I duck below it.
Yeah,
and so then
wow.
she hits it out. So we all kind of laughed about it, how I had an Ernie, and then she Bernied me. And then I went from a Fernie into another Bernie into a miss. And so, Tim, this is the stuff you're missing out on. At these high level Ernie situations, it's that chess game, right? Because I think dink battles are a lot of a chess game. But I think when it comes to Ernies, it's perhaps the most, psychological, cat and mouse anticipatory element of the game. So actually, I'm curious about this. Stolp, which side do you prefer to hit your Ernies on?
Yeah. Before I just want to close out. So Fernie, fake Ernie, and then Bernie. Tell me what that means. I know it's you hit it back at them.
Just hitting someone. Yeah.
You hit.
So
You aim. You actually aim off court.
Okay.
And you do a body shot, and we call it a Bernie because it's like they're doing an Ernie, and you burn them.
You burn them. Okay.
Right.
I just want to know what's the origin of if you put me on a spelling bee test again, like you did earlier. I need to know the origin of the name. So
yeah, and I didn't invent any of these. I appropriated them from other players.
Well, Ian made one up today. The Learny.
So
maybe
Ernies,
we can
Learnies, Bernies, and Fernies.
Yeah. So maybe we can Learny Tim how to do an Ernie with a Ernie. All right. Well, I prefer. So I've talking about drilling, and Tim, if you are in learning mode, honestly, the only way to learn is to feel it, and the only way to feel it is to drill it. And so have somebody throw 100 balls that are Ernieable from the kitchen to practice what that feels like from the left side, from the right side. And so I did that at the beginning of my Ernieing journey here. Ernie, journey, Learny, Bernie, Fernie.
Wow. So many rhymes.
Anyways, and quickly, I can do both sides, but I've only put one into actual executable gameplay. And that is with me on the left side where I jump across the kitchen and hit it with my forehand. So I like being on the left, jump across the corner. So we call this the athletic version, to where I'm cueing off of a flat paddle facing your head down. You put it out in front of me. I'm going to jump late, not allowing your partner to see that or telegraph it, forecast it, what Jesse called. And then I'm going to jump across and I'm going to smack it with my forehand. I do have a clip. It is clip 3, if you want to pull that up, of me. And you'll see in this clip as we're teeing it up, I like to live and kind of
literally going to use those
lurk.
words.
Lurk. I like to live and lurk. And so I'm a left side player dominantly as an alpha. And so this is my territory, and this is where I stake my claim. So roll the clip. Get one. Ian defends it. Stay over on the left side. Ian puts another great ball down the alley. Give me that. Done. So
I'm going to watch that again. Don't go away, Jesse. I want to watch that again.
Yeah, and go ahead and play it. And what I'll do is describe it. So what I did is
you can slow-mo that, Jesse.
I did
on the speed.
I did a slow Ernie that was defended. My partner Ian. Oh, this is great in slow-mo. So cross court dink. I get a paddle on it. It's weak. Jesse then hits it back to Ian quickly, hits it back to me where I'm already on the left side. I get back into position. Ian puts it back at Jesse and attacks him. I then come over and get a real Ernie on it and finish it down the middle. That was a great example of a partner who understands the Ernie and what his responsibility was. I put a weak first Ernie on that, but I'm living on that left side. Ian so properly defends it and goes right back at Jesse. Jesse then has no option then to put it to me in the left side, which then I get back. I get back into position. Ian's not done with Jesse. Jesse goes to Jesse's feet. I see his head down. I then attack and finish. That was 3. I don't know if we call it 2 or 3 Ernies technically.
It was 3 Ernies, and I'm glad you pulled that clip up because I remember that moment. Because when you and I play and you play on the left for me, one of my main focuses is to really hit that ball in front of you, alley side. That really gives you opportunities for Ernies. And Jesse, we got you off balance with my deflection. Like, you had great defense on the first one, and then my deflection, you were kind of, off kilter from there, but just kept jamming it down on Stolp's side till he could eventually get one to get put away.
Yeah. Yeah. And one thing to watch, and I was trying to catch my balance a couple times. Ian mentioned this early when we go back and look at video clips. I would say 50% of the time there's a foot fault. And so if you're getting Ernied a lot, and I'd be curious against your Justins, like looking at their feet, right? Because a lot of the time, if you start and jump over by, if your foot's anywhere on that kitchen line, we all know the rules here, you're going to get cut. It's illegal. And so if you're in a ref match in tournaments, really, really watch that and watch it in general. I mean, you don't want to be winning on cheap points, but a lot of the times, like, it's a fast moving shot. There's a lot of moving parts, and 5 out of 10 times you're probably not hitting it legally. So be on the lookout with
but it nobody's going to, okay. First of all, if it's a non-refereed match, nobody's looking at your feet. Like, I'm focused on the ball. So even if you step in the kitchen or graze that line, nobody's going to call it like 99% of the time. And even if I did, I can't enforce that call. The rules say that we would all have to agree. And you would say, well, I don't know if I was in the kitchen or not, so I'm not prepared to accept your judgment that I was in the kitchen.
Right.
Okay. But then even if there are refs, which is becoming increasingly rare, okay, because, we're doing DUPR rec matches now and DUPR flex leagues and so on. So, like, refs are becoming a relic. But even if there are refs, they can't see it half the time. So I would say, play in good faith, try to do your Ernie properly. But if you graze that line, it's probably something that nobody's going to catch.
True.
Tim, what do you got on this? Like, I know. Thoughts.
So watching these video clips, I was reminded of the play from Monday. And what was really interesting is I'm predominantly a left side player, or else I have been. Or at least I have been, but I went 0-2 playing left side with Jared on Monday. And it wasn't until I switched to actually playing on the right. I played straight up with Louie, and, me and Louie are both good. So we're able to pull it out, but I played right side with Stolp, and that has worked amazingly well with Stolp, that combination, that strategy. And then when it was the PickleBros playing, I played right side with Ian. And I think if you're a guy that's always looking to Ernie, and we mentioned, if you're on the left side, you're using your forehand probably, although Ian has a fantastic Ernie from the backhand as he's on the left. I don't know anyone else who finds this angle with their backhand, but Ian's is so sweet. He hits that from the left side. I think it makes a lot of sense if you're the guys looking to Ernie to just be on the left. And with that combination of me on the right and an Ernieing, a player who Ernie's on the left, I had a ton of success. So I think, and what's funny about that is Ian prides himself on being a right side player. So I think there may be some room for adjustment in that mindset there, Ian.
Yeah. And by the way, when we played the Justins, one of the Justins was left-handed, and they both loved to Ernie. So it shut off the right alley, but it also shut off the left alley. They had basically 40% of the court that you couldn't go to.
Yeah, and you got dink middle. And Tim, I'm really glad you brought that up, because when you and I were playing together there, you mentioned you were like, hey, I'm feeling good on the right side today. I want to play on the right. I was like, well, I'm feeling pretty good on the left. I'll play left. And we still kept you that alpha mentality. But I had a couple more options. And once I started hitting the Ernes, you pointed out to me, you're like, dude, we should do this all the time. So I actually do have 3 clips. Of course, I'm going to take the chance to highlight myself to our audience. But that kind of illustrate me earning from the left, and I have one with my backhand. So Jesse, can you do number 7 first? This is going to be a little less traditional of an Ernie.
Good serve. Right. So that was coming off of a dink battle with Jesse, and I hit it with my backhand, right? And I think 98% of the time, if someone makes that dink, Jesse, it's going to bounce. No one's going to go after it. No one's going to attack it. But just kind of like Tim mentioned, all my goofy, weird shots that I do, I'm very unconventional in how I hold my paddle, how I hit the ball. It was in my strike zone. And so it wasn't the most impressive Ernie in terms of clearing the kitchen, right? Like it was a little bit shallow, but it was just enough that I was able to hit a really sick dink. Mm-hmm. And I can't do that when I'm on the right side, right? Because my shoulder is alley side. But if I'm on the left, my shoulder is center court. So I get that extra reach. So that's one example to kind of highlight what Tim mentioned. And then also I want to say, I Ernie pretty well just from the kitchen in a dink battle. But where I think I excel in Ernies is doing it in moments that people aren't expecting. So Jesse, for clip 6 and 8, I'm taking my Ernie off of a drop shot. And not a lot of people will do it. And Stolp, you're the one who told me to start doing this, actually. You keyed me in on this. So, Jesse, if we can roll it here.
Jeez, great return.
Yeah, it was.
Gosh.
See, so the return set me up really well. And then Stolp's drop was a little high. And so instead of just crushing it away, because like it was a little high, but it wasn't totally crushable, I was able to really put pressure on Jesse down the alley, knowing he's probably going to take the safe drop shot and lift it down to my alley. I'm going to put it away. And then so let's go to 8. It's something pretty similar, I think.
Ooh.
See, but that's from the right side, right? So I can do it from both sides, but that came off of a high drop. And most of the time, people aren't going to third shot drop their Ernies. But I showed my brother these clips, and he's like, dude, at the level I play, I could do that on every single drop shot that comes in, right?
Yeah.
And so even if it's a good drop, sometimes if you've got the ability to get closer to the net, it's actually not a good drop, right? Like it's too high. So this, and I think after that, Jesse, like I got a couple on you when we were playing on Monday, but then you just started to go middle. And I don't think for the second half of the game, I got anything, right? You completely boxed me out because you learned. Now I got a couple highlights from that, but it still worked. So Ernies don't necessarily, and probably in my opinion, shouldn't always just be done from dink battles. Anytime you can clear the kitchen and get to that ball early, it's worth it. Not only can you sometimes hit it with more power, but the fact you're getting to the ball sooner than your opponents. Sometimes you'll win on the surprise factor alone. So work on it from the left side and the right side. Unfortunately enough, as a right side player, I'm significantly better at earning from the left.
I would encourage everyone to develop the Ernie shot, including people who are older and not as athletic. Because you can just sort of walk around the kitchen if you're anticipating a shot there. And I would also encourage female players to develop this shot because usually they're the ones targeted in mixed doubles.
Such a good point.
Right. So if they hit straight ahead, whatever comes back is there's a very good chance it's going to be an Ernieable ball.
And sorry, and let's be honest, we come from a male perspective when we're playing here, even when we do mixed. Ladies, because you're targeted and you often, I would say predominantly have your male partner with his forehand in the middle, that's limiting that court to so much, like so little space that you have to get isolated to. If you can develop an Ernie, even that walk around Ernie or a tiny jump, you will give yourself so much breathing room in the court. and not be like you're just getting funneled and drowned and getting all this volume. So if you ladies can prove that you can hit Ernie's, people will second guess shoving it down your throat there. So guys,
and I want to speak to the long, lengthy people out in the world there as you're learning Ernie's. One of the best opportunities, Ian was highlighting it there, is the return of serve, Ernie. If you are long armed like me, you can run right to that point up to the net and look for that weak return of serve if it's coming back to you.
So drop shot off the return
off of the return of
Right.
serve. Excuse me, thank you. Run right to a spot, and you can put yourself in a finishing position every time. So a lot of the times, if my partner is serving and the return of serve's coming back, I'm running up to meet that serve at the net, and it'll get you winners every time. So that is a very, very powerful tool to anyone who has length and a little bit of speed to get up there. Just something to think about. I wanted to definitely highlight. Yep.
Sensei Stolp taught me that one. Guys, we're running up here. Any closing thoughts on Lernies, Ernies, Bernies, or Fernies? I guess not. Everyone, thank you for joining us for this episode of the PickleBros podcast. Please like, comment, email us with what's your beef. We want to talk about your guys' beefs on the show. If there's one thing pickleballers can do really well, it's complain. So don't just leave it to us. Let us know your grievances. We're on all of your podcasting platforms, including, Jesse, we're on Apple now, right?
We are, yes.
Yeah, so we were fighting that battle with them for a while, but we're now on Apple Podcasts, so you can't not find us. There's no more excuses. So go ahead, give us a listen. We thank you all. We love you all. Stay out of the kitchen.